Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. In this episode, we meet Americans working today for a safer tomorrow. In Maine and Michigan, we learn about new proposals to limit potentially dangerous so-called forever chemicals showing up in our food and water. And in North Carolina's Outer Banks, we dive in with scientists trying to unlock a hidden secret about great white sharks. But first, a look at the challenges illegal guns pose to law enforcement. In the last 5 years, there's been a nearly 600% increase in illegally modified guns nationwide. Nora O'Donnell rode along with D.C. Metro Police to learn more about this rising threat and ways to combat it.
This is what a 9mm pistol sounds like, modified and set to fully automatic with an illegal conversion device.
Explain what a Glock switch is.
So these are actually referred to as machine gun conversion devices. You can see some of these are mass-produced, metallic made, and this is what you'll hear referred to as a switch.
What do you know about where these are coming from?
A lot of those can be made with anyone with a 3D printer. These here are more commercially produced. You will notice that a lot of these may carry the Glock logo on the rear. However, they are not associated with Glock whatsoever.
The conversion devices are small and inexpensive. They cost as little as $20, but can change a handgun to fire 15 rounds in under 2 seconds.
You're really kind of spraying bullets.
Absolutely, especially out of a handgun. It's very hard to maintain a weapon that small with that amount of fire.
At the ATF lab in D.C., they're processing a record number of illegal guns.
Commander, how often are you seeing these now?
We're seeing them with a degree of regularity, about 50% more than we saw last year.
And that's because it makes this gun much more dangerous?
Absolutely. It increases the likelihood that we're going to encounter multiple victims when these are used. And also, in those singular victim incidents, it increases the likelihood that those incidents will be fatal.
Commander Lachey Mako reports to Chief of Police Robert Conti, who was just tapped to join the FBI.
A lot more guns are in communities now, a lot more guns than what we experienced over the course of my time here in the police department.
We rode along with the chief around the nation's capital to learn about the challenges his officers are facing with crime at alarming levels.
We have the data right here from your website about D.C. crime. All crime up 25%, murder up 24%, motor vehicle theft up 107%. What's going on in our nation's capital?
When you talk specifically about the violent crime, early in this year, we had a couple of cases where we saw individuals just shooting people, shooting each other for no reason, individuals who are unable to resolve disputes, simple arguments that turned into homicides. Why? Because people have access to illegal firearms. When they have access to illegal firearms, they use them, unfortunately.
Back in the lab, they showed us how the device can take a legal weapon from this to this. The ATF says they've seen a nearly 600% increase nationwide of modified weapons.
There have been more mass shootings in America in 2023 than there have been days. How much do you worry about a mass shooting in D.C.?
It's something that's on my mind every day while we're sitting here. You take, one person with one firearm that's capable of shooting, 100 rounds of ammunition very rapidly in a short period of time. That can happen anywhere, at any time. And we see these converter switches that are able to convert semi-automatic firearms into fully automatic firearms. Those are things that keep me up at night.
Digging in a little deeper on this issue, a recent CBS News poll found that 61% of parents say their children are worried about gun violence. In Kansas City, a grassroots organization is recruiting moms around the country to push for gun reform. Adriana Diaz spoke to some of these parents stepping out of their comfort zones and onto the streets to demand action.
It may not be our kids, but it's going to be someone's kids, and that hurts just as much.
Sarah Ennis, Anna Simpson, Annie Knoll, and Eileen Knobloch are suburban Kansas City moms who say if they don't speak up, they're part of the problem.
So many women out here today, this was their first protest. This was my first protest. They'd never done anything like this, and it felt scary and uncomfortable. And We want other moms like us to get uncomfortable a little bit.
That's why after the Nashville school shooting, they created Lives on the Line, a group stretching across district, state, and party lines demanding an end to gun violence.
We don't have enough white people who are willing to stand up and say, this is not right.
Because we know that Black children and LGBT people are affected by gun violence at a much higher level.
Yeah.
A recent CBS News poll showed 61% of parents say their children are worried about gun violence.
My 8-year-old woke up the other night and she said, Mom, I had this dream and there were guns.
You have mental health issues everywhere. But when you pair those with absolute chaos in terms of gun legislation, this is what you get.
With gun gridlock in Washington, states are paving their own way in both directions. This week, Washington state will become the 10th to ban assault weapons, and Florida's governor recently signed a bill allowing permitless concealed carry, the 26th state to do so. And in Tennessee, despite the Nashville school shooting, representatives just passed a law protecting gun manufacturers against lawsuits. The states with the weakest gun laws have gun death rates that are 3 times higher than states with strong restrictions.
I think about it every day I drop my children off at school.
Every day?
Every single day.
Oh,
Every day I say I love you, and I pray it. I'm not exaggerating. I pray it's not the last time I see you.
One mom also told us that maybe there needs to be a change in narrative, perhaps approach ending gun violence as what could be the greatest achievement of this era.
Coming up, the hidden threat from so-called forever chemicals lurking in our food supply. This is Eye on America. Health experts are sounding the alarm about human-made chemicals known as PFAS, which are linked to cancer and other illnesses. Roxana Saberi takes an in-depth look at how our food gets contaminated.
On a hilltop in Maine, Songbird Farm sits silently. A shell of what it was and could have been.
Welcome to the ghost town of our dreams.
Adam Nordell and his wife Johanna bought the 44 acres in 2014 to raise organic produce and a family. 7 years later, they learned their land was riddled with toxic chemicals called PFAS.
Did you know what PFAS were?
No. I didn't know what PFAS chemicals were.
He soon found out. They're a family of thousands of compounds that last so long in the environment, they're known as forever chemicals. For decades, they've been widely used to put the non-stick in cookware and to make stain and waterproof fabrics, firefighting foam, food packaging, even cosmetics. The toxins at Songbird Farm were traced to sludge, the solids left after wastewater is treated, spread there as fertilizer in the 1990s.
It contained a whole host of industrial chemicals that were washing out of consumer products in people's homes, or that were entering the wastewater treatment district from industrial facilities.
Adam says tests found their water and some crops had dangerously high levels. So did his family's blood. He says it was 250 times higher than average.
Living with PFAS exposure is terrifying. I feel like I have a poorly wired time bomb inside of me.
That's because PFAS have been linked to health problems like low birth weight, liver damage, and some kinds of cancer.
While Maine is leading the way in identifying farmland contaminated with PFAS, a recent study estimates that sludge, like what was applied here, has also been spread on around 5% of all farmland in this country.
While not all sludge contains toxins, cattle that ate feed grown in tainted soil have been destroyed in at least 3 states. The chemicals also leach into lakes, rivers, and groundwater from factories and landfills.
They've really contaminated fish everywhere.
Climatologist Dan Brown showed us a stretch of a river near Detroit where the fish are too contaminated to eat.
I just can't imagine that there's any place that's going to be truly safe from PFAS at this point.
A recent analysis of freshwater fish samples collected by the EPA found PFAS are an issue in almost every state. They're so pervasive, studies have shown more than 95% of Americans now have detectable levels in their blood. And now, for the first time, the EPA is proposing strict regulations limiting PFAS in drinking water, more than 90% lower than previous recommended levels.
I was very pleased to see this.
Elsie Sunderland studies PFAS pollution at her Harvard University lab.
How would you characterize the federal government's approach toward PFAS?
I would call it ambitious, yet fragmented. You know, if we're really concerned about PFAS and our everyday exposure, we should be proactive and we should be banning these chemicals from non-essential uses.
In an email to CBS News, the FDA says it tests products in the U.S.'s general food supply, which is among the safest in the world. The agency says very few of those products have detectable levels of PFAS, and those that do are low.
In this greenhouse, we grew tomatoes in the summer and spinach and head lettuce in the winter.
Back in Maine, Adam has turned from working on his farm to pushing for new laws to help other farmers with dreams spoiled by forever chemicals.
If I can help protect other people from what happened to me, that motivates me to get up and go to work every day.
Continuing the conversation around protecting our planet. Wind and solar power use are growing exponentially, but going green can come at a cost. Ben Tracy looks at efforts to control the waste created by green energy.
The blades on massive wind turbines can be as long as a football field and strong as a linebacker.
They are designed not to break, so when your job is to break them, obviously it's tough.
Julie Angelo brought us to this quarry in Louisiana, Missouri.
What is all this stuff?
This is our storage of windmill blades before we process them.
Her company, Veolia, cuts used blades down to size and shreds them.
So this is our final product.
Cement makers use it as fuel instead of burning coal, cutting planet-warming carbon emissions at the cement plant by nearly 30%.
If you weren't recycling all of this, what would happen?
What would, or what also does happen, unfortunately, a lot of those end up in landfill.
Most used windmill blades are buried in the ground because it's cheaper. A black eye for green energy. By 2050, the world's wind industry is expected to produce more than 47 million tons of blade waste each year. Finding ways to recycle blades.
This panel is not necessarily suitable for reuse.
As well as used solar panels, is now energizing the industry. This solar panel recycling plant in Yuma, Arizona can process 7,500 panels a day. Solar is the fastest growing source of energy in the U.S. Panels can last for 25 to 30 years, but more than 90% of used solar panels end up in landfills.
Why were most solar panels not recycled?
There was no planning to handle the waste. And that is the biggest challenge. It was just going into dumpsters.
Now, with a tsunami of renewable waste coming, recyclers are ramping up to ride the wave.
Ahead, massive amounts of seaweed are washing ashore in Florida, and it's having an effect on the environment and tourists. That story is next. Huge piles of smelly seaweed known as sargassum are washing up on the beaches of Florida's Atlantic coast, leading experts to question the potential impact on the environment and the economy. Manuel Bajorca speaks with officials trying to clean it up.
It's very undesirable.
Oscar Vasquez has owned his Miami Beach condo for more than 25 years and says he's never seen this much sargassum, a seaweed, this early.
There are parts of the beach where it's undesirable and difficult to get into the water.
Specialized tractors have been raking up the clumps of brown weeds that line these beaches. But by the time the sun rises again, they're usually back. The sargassum that is picked up is destined for landfills, but before, it's piled just offshore, releasing a foul odor.
Not to be overly dramatic, I feel that maybe I bought in the wrong place.
Really?
Yeah, because this is not what I bargained for.
The seaweed is naturally occurring, but this year scientists say there's a bumper crop. On an average March since 2011, there's been this much of it in what's called the Great Sargassum Belt. This year, there was this much, an estimated 13.5 million metric tons.
All the seaweed.
Afifa Abdul-Ghani studies sargassum at the University of Miami.
When wastewater is released into the river systems and makes its way into the ocean, you have all that nutrients that can be found in wastewater.
And they help
It acts as
basically
a
to
fertilizer.
fertilize
Yep.
the sargassum.
She's analyzing what productive human uses it might have.
Instead of putting it into a landfill, we wanted to compost it and see if a usable product can be made from it. And yes, it can be composted.
But that's still in the research stage. Until then, Miami-Dade County officials say beaches will be cleaned daily, eager to protect tourism revenue and property values.
Maintain the beaches.
Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava says they must be careful to also protect wildlife.
We have to get a permit for removal from the state, and there are also federal guidelines protecting the native species. We can't put out barriers because that would be injurious to wildlife.
So it's a delicate balance, trying to keep the beaches free of the sargassum and also trying to protect the wildlife that's there.
Absolutely. It's a balance that I think we've done very well maintaining.
We close our show off the coast of North Carolina to study a secret great white sharks have been keeping for centuries. Researchers have never found the location where they mate in the Atlantic Ocean. But Carter Evans joined a group of scientists on the verge of finding out.
Look at that shark. It turns out getting a great white shark to bite is not as easy as you may think. There's another one right there. Take a look. We're on an expedition with O-Search off the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The bait's in the water, and so are the sharks.
This is like the most exciting / nerve-wracking part of it is when they're like really close to the bait and you're just waiting for them to grab it.
But they're cautious, circling the boat for hours. At this point, we are literally surrounded by sharks. They are circling the boat. That's the big one. That's what scientists want to catch. And it's not taking the bait. It is a buffet that you've laid out there for this shark, and
of the thing it wants the most,
and it won't take a bite.
So it just shows you how deliberate these white sharks are.
Chris Fisher founded O-Search, and CBS News was there when the organization tagged its very first Atlantic white shark in 2012.
All right, let's get Genie in the water. Everybody off.
They'll soon hit their goal of 100 captures, tracking each one online. But first, the team hopes to uncover one of the white shark's best-kept secrets.
There's 9 white shark populations around the world, and no one has ever identified a mating site.
That seems to be one of the big missing pieces to this puzzle.
That's the last big missing piece, yes.
With centuries of people on the ocean, no one's ever documented this?
Well, this is a 400-million-year-old secret. The ocean's not going to give it up easy.
Scientists think it could be happening right here off the Carolina coast during the summer migration. To find out, they need blood samples. You can see that buoy essentially headed away from the boat right now. There is a great white shark on the other end of that line. They're going to head out in the boat now and bring it back here.
13-footish. Best guess is female.
15 foot, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Like a dog on a leash, the team leads the shark onto a submerged platform. And the scientists spring into action. They're working like a NASCAR pit crew out here, fast, trying to get these satellite tags installed because they've only got 15 minutes that they can keep this animal out of the water. They draw blood and even perform an ultrasound, all while the shark is awake and unsedated.
I just want to get right in here and get a look. Can we?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've never been this close to such a massive animal before.
Brett McBride is pumping seawater through her gills to keep her breathing.
I mean, you've got your hand practically in its mouth.
Yeah, but you can see that it's fairly docile. They usually are.
Scientists call this learned helplessness. The shark can't go anywhere, so she stops fighting to save energy.
Can I touch one of her teeth?
Yes.
Yeah?
You can.
Oh my God, this is so weird.
Within minutes, the data for 24 different scientific projects is collected, and the shark they've named Umi, the Japanese word for ocean, swims away. But those tags scientists attach will track her movements for up to 10 years.
They're the system manager of the ocean. As they go, the ocean goes. The ocean is 70% of the planet, provides us 2/3 of our oxygen, 100% of our water, and billions of people food every day. They are the guardians of our fish stocks. There's no future for us as humans if there's not a robust future for our large sharks.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.
This episode of Eye on America is sponsored by Prudential. Plan, invest, insure. Retire with Prudential.